Greetings and welcome to the next episode of my director's commentary for my Minecraft Machinima Series 2014. If you have not already watched the series, I highly encourage you to do so. This episode is going to start getting into much bigger spoilers and more action than the first few episodes. And I do want to comment before I go too far. I've really been pleased with feedback that I'm getting on the director's commentary. There was a lot of stuff that people either missed or just didn't realize were Easter eggs in the series itself. And I hope that after listening to the director's commentary, you'll consider going back and re-looking at the episodes in a new light. I particularly want to thank Sylvis Rune in this episode because he made me smile. When he saw my initial LP and it was described as pseudo-survival, he didn't go too far into the series because apparently my acting in episode 1 of 2014 was good enough for him to think that I was just playing straight Minecraft. And so he missed out on all of the spoilers, and I hope he's going back to actually now check out what's behind the scenes. In any case, at this point in the story, the main character at the moment is the clone, and he is following the map that he got from the outpost. Now, I goofed up, and I knew that I goofed up as soon as I started filming this bit, but because I'm doing this series somewhat organically, I don't go back to fix it. And the issue is that I did not put any sort of X or indicator on the map of where I wanted him to go to. So the character is basically just looking at an empty map, and in his mind, he knows that spawn is somewhere around the point where he's looking, and so he's trying to get to, basically trying to get back to the spawn area. And myself playing this in real life, again, organically not following a strict script, I couldn't find spawn, so I kind of wandered around for about 3 minutes before I actually found spawn again. And the part here that's important is that he sees a button that he did not previously notice. I think it's also important to point out that this special effect that I used here to make the hillside dissolve and reveal the elevator, this was inspired by Blame the Controller's build team, which is the Broken Buttons build team. They created this effect in the Mindcrack Minecon 2013 custom adventure map. I thought it was just amazing, and so I've now used it in 2 maps. I used it in my tiny Minecraft minigame as well as in this map for this series here. One thing about the texture that I put on the redstone lamps, which is what you see as these blue computer monitors, and the texture with some white font says load asterisk, comma 8, comma 1. That is a Easter egg as well, and that refers back to the Commodore 64 games of my youth and many, many, many years spent playing PC games and just building a lot of inspirations for what I do today. So at this point, there's this strange elevator that's open, and the clone is moved into the clone chamber, and he's like, what is going on here? And this is a very important sequence here, because this is where he actually begins the cloning process for another clone of the custodian that will come into play in episodes 11 and 12 of the series. And I actually reskinned the villager to look like an embryo floating in the cloning tank, and I thought that was a pretty cool special effect. You don't get to see it quite here, but I did do a lot of texture and build work to support this map, and if I make it available for download, you can actually see the little baby villager in there. Now, the funny thing is that I actually filmed this sequence 4 times, this sequence where he is just making his way through the cloning chamber to see what's on the other end. And the funny thing is that I filmed this sequence without recording my voice, and then I later went in and added the voice. And the first time that I filmed this, I actually had my son sitting with me and watching this sequence get filmed because he was going to help me with an upcoming part where I find clone, where I find Cousteau, I mean. And for whatever reason, I have this 11 gravel in my hand, and when I backed up to the edge to make this bridge across over to the strange thing that I see over there, of course, I put the gravel down, and just before I put the gravel down, my son Matt says, "Don't put gravel down." And then I put the gravel down as a bridge, and of course it falls, and I fall to my death. And we were rolling on the ground laughing. I wish I had kept that footage for outtakes. At some point along the way, I inadvertently deleted it, but it was funny. And then other takes in this section here, I just could not get enough mobs. I could not get this place dark enough so that enough mobs were spawning. I really wanted this to be a bigger fight, but I think it turned out good the way it is. Now, this section here, this is really one of the biggest twists, I think, in the whole series, is when you find out that he is a clone of a Cousteau, which means pirate in a book series by Christopher Hintz. It's called the Paratwa Saga. The first book is called the first book is called Liege Killer. Second book is called Paratwa. The third book is called Ashok. It's one of my favorite all-time book series, and it's very obscure, not well known, but it's written fine. But some of the ideas in it, some of the sci-fi tech, are pretty cool. I read this book when I was probably about 12 years old, and it's one of the first books that I found in the adult section of my library. First sci-fi books that I found on my own. I had never heard of it before. Just picked it up kind of randomly and started reading it. And it had a lot of adult themes in it. It had a lot of I'll say adult content. I don't mean a lot of explicit adult content, but adult subjects. And to me, it certainly shaped how I thought of myself through my teen and high school years and into my college years in terms of my own physical abilities. I played sports when I was in elementary school. I played soccer. I played a couple other things, and I was very active outside. But this was, when I read these books by Christopher Hintz, it was about the time that I was realizing my balance capabilities and my flexibility and my speed and my leg strength, basically. And in the book, the main characters go into just discussion about how they train themselves and mental tricks and mantras that they recite while they're training to be the best athletically and reflexively that they can be. And that just really had a big influence on me creatively. And so almost any game that I play where you can name your character, I name my first few characters after characters from the book series. And here I have one of the main characters named the Cousteau, which means basically space pirate, and it's obviously named after Jacques Cousteau. And one of the things in this series I thought was really clever of myself, but also turned out to be too confusing, is that Cousteau, as a pirate, and the custodian of the sanctuary, and the clone all start with C, and Cousteau and custodian sound very similar, and one's a clone of the other, etc. So I just thought that was a really neat little twist that I have behind the scenes, and I don't know that it came across clearly in the final product, but I learned a lesson from that. Okay, so in this section here, Clone finds the back to healing tank. That's a Star Wars reference, and the inhabitants of this chamber is the Cousteau. You will notice that the Cousteau is initially wearing an orange jumpsuit with a strange sort of markers on it. This is a tribute to Q Magnet. That is one of the skins that I wore in my playthrough of Diversity. It's actually the skin that I wore in the Adventure branch, which was the orange wool. So I hope that QMagnet enjoyed that subtle Easter egg there. Now, this part here really turned out to be confusing, and here's my biggest flaw. When I envisioned this dialogue between the custo and the custodian, or I should say between the pirate and the clone to make it easier on your ears, both of them have rsmalec above their head because that's how I wanted it to be. And the way that I wanted the audience to tell the difference between who was speaking is that when the custo spoke, his right hand would be orange, the jumpsuit, and it would be from his first-person perspective looking at the clone, who'd be wearing the gray jumpsuit. And then when the clone spoke, when Custodian spoke, you would see the right hand, the famous Minecraft right hand, with the gray jumpsuit, and he'd be looking at the Custo, or the pirate, in the orange jumpsuit. Of course, that all doesn't work if you're holding an item in your hand. And if both characters have rsmalec above their head and are wearing iron armor, so you can't actually see what color their shirts are, the whole effect is ruined, and it's really hard to tell who's talking at one point. I thought pretty hard about changing my voice and trying to have different dialogue between the two different characters, and it actually turned out to be so much harder than I originally envisioned. So I do admit this part here was a bit confusing, but basically what's happening here is the clone awakens the custodian. Custodian figures out very quickly where he is and what has happened, and that he's talking to a clone of himself. He basically decides that he needs to get information from this clone. He needs to find out where his ship is. He needs to find out how long he's been in here. The clone doesn't know anything. He's got no memory, so the pirate pretty much figures out pretty quickly that, okay, I have what I need from this guy. He's of no more use to me. He's a clone. I hate clones. Clones are not human. Clones are a copy of humans, etc., etc. He is prejudiced against clones. But his prejudice is really caused by the bots. So if you listen to the story episode of my director's commentary, I explain this, but I am going to go through it again here. Basically what happened is we humans invented robots. Humans fought against each other. The robots got a little bit smarter. But of course, the robots are programmed to protect humans and obey humans. Well, once we've learned cloning technology, the robots are not programmed to obey clones. And everything was fine. The humans were at war with each other. We went to Mars, and we found these green power crystals. That occurs in my Mars mission map. These green power crystals are very valuable to bots because they power their batteries, basically. And so sometime around this point, a subset of the bots decided that they were going to subvert the human population by through a couple means. One, they would begin cloning, and during the cloning process or during long space travel, the original human would be put into a hypersleep, and the trick is they would just never actually be woken up. Only clones would be alive from that, or would be active from that point on. So the bots aren't able to harm the humans, but they are able to hold them into eternal cryosleep, repair them with back to fluid, and basically keep them as prisoners, and then the clone army can be slaves to the bots. And so this whole conflict that's occurring outside of this sanctuary is around that idea, and that's sort of the basis for a custom map that I will probably not make at this point, which was going to be called Jupiter Sons of Earth. So this pirate is one of the Sons of Earth. He has broken into the clone sanctuary. His intent is to destroy it, and he doesn't realize that, when he was injured in the fall and this clone was activated, that the clone is actually forwarded some of his plans and actually given him a leg up and helped him out. And there's this moment here where the clone is saying, wait, you can't destroy this place. You'll kill all these clones. Like, you'll kill us. You'll kill me. I'm a clone. These clones are alive. You can't do that. And so the clone is about to disagree, and he's going to push back on the pirate who wants to destroy the clones and then destroy the bots and let humans live. And realizing that this clone, it means nothing to him, he kills the clone. The clone realizes which way the Custo, see, I'm even getting confused, realizes which way the clone came from. He fights his way out of the cloning facility, and he basically is intent on heading to his ship in episode 7